just jump right into the questions. And if you need more information, we are having another candidate raffle on the 21st. The chamber is doing that in conjunction with an Ocean of Winds. Thank you. That'll be Sunday the 21st, 2 p.m., and that will be all of the mayoral candidates, city council candidates, and the county commissioners. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with David Dolly on the very end. So David, if elected mayor, you will be tasked with overseeing one of the largest city budgets on the Oregon coast. In addition, you will be required to help draft the city budget each year. Can you give an example of how your qualifications will help to ensure that the city's annual budget is spent wisely?
Well, my background is in finance, and I have built a spreadsheet of every neighboring city to our city. I've met with the city managers of Newport. I'm going to meet with the city managers of Coos Bay and Florence, and I have compared our finances per capita to these other cities. And there are some major differences in our budget compared to our neighboring cities that have larger populations that are able to get by on less funds. And that is interesting to me because in the real estate industry, when you purchase a house, you can't buy that house until the bank goes and looks at other homes near that home, and things need to be in alignment. And so my expertise of looking at what we need to do in Lincoln City is look at successful communities who are doing really well in this economy. But it's also looking at what we're spending on our citizens who make up our 8,500 citizens. We have families who are right now having their hours at work cut, and we're about to open all of our tax bills on November 15th, which is going to be much higher. And I worry for these families who are going to be opening these paychecks with reduced hours with rents that their landlords may be extending to them higher rents because the property taxes are going up. And I'm very concerned about that. And my relationships, not only locally, regionally, and statewide, are very at my side to guide and get advice from not only our elected officials that are in charge of this community, and there are also previous relationships with much larger cities that I've worked with who have said they are at my side to help us guide us forward. And the last thing, we have tremendous executives in this room and in this community who have retired from Fortune 500 companies. They've come to me and said, I'm happy to sit at your side and guide you in this city as I have done for major corporations. So I look really forward to leading our city forward in fiscal. I want us to win compared to other communities, because if you look how we're compared to other communities, we are losing in how we're spending our money.
Okay, thank you. Straight down the line. Next one for Dick Anderson. As you may know, tourism in Lincoln City is our major economic driver. We all know what happens when you put all of your eggs in one basket. With that being said, what ideas or solutions do you have to help Lincoln City become a more well-rounded economy?
Thank you, Laura. That's a good question, and one that often comes up. It's about really, as I hear that question, it's where are the living wage jobs? When are you going to bring more living wage jobs to Lincoln City? And it's my favorite topic because, one, jobs won't be coming to Lincoln City until we have the basics covered. And think about the basics: housing, schools, our medical facilities, and transportation. Those are the core elements that make a community welcoming and healthy for businesses to come. So, we're working on them, and I would point you to my own resume on the table. If you'll note, I partner now and have been since I've gotten into government I'm on the health district board. I go to ODOT meetings and have for the last 8 years, 2 meetings a month, just to advocate and on Highway 18 and Highway 101 to make sure that those who are sending dollars our way for road construction remember that Highway 18 comes all the way past Spirit Mountain to Lincoln City. And 101 is our main street where Lincoln City doesn't have much control over it, but we can influence what's going on. So my answer really is there's a lot we can do. We are doing it, but it's not as easy as just sending out an invitation. You got to be ready as a community to serve them and receive them. And I think we're close.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next question for Susan. What is Lincoln City's biggest economic development opportunity in your opinion?
Biggest opportunity, it would be something other than tourism. I think serving our seniors is an economic opportunity because the seniors bring in their retirement dollars. We need to make sure that there are services there for the seniors. Transportation, healthcare, as Dick said. We also need more housing that's affordable to seniors and our entire workforce. So as we are working on housing and transportation and healthcare, I think that we will have a more rounded population and a more diverse economy.
All right, thank you.
And David, what is the city's biggest financial challenge? And if elected mayor, how would you address it?
We bring in about $7 million of tourism dollars, and we're always going to have that ocean right at our side. And what I feel our biggest economic engine needs to be is how can we build up our tourism from now till next March? There are many ways that we can do this. I was a state trade association president. We had over 4,000 loan officers around the state that when I was president, we created continuing education. And this is something that can be a tremendous economic engine in our downtime. In this room, we have nurses, we have law enforcement, we have many specialty trades. In this culture, you have to get recertified, updated in many of your careers. And I have relationships with many state trade associations, and I'm going to invite them to bring the realtors here. The realtor mother can sit in a conference room, and the dad and kids can enjoy our tourism businesses during the off season. We're close to these major markets in the Portland Metro and Mid-London Valley and Salem, and we are primed to take advantage of that opportunity of this cultural shift to continuing education, and they would love to come here in off-season and make this not only a vacation, and also bring a creative way to bring tourism and keep our citizens who are working paycheck to paycheck to get those dire needed hours right now, as their rents could be going up with our higher taxes coming. And I really think if we could get our tourism higher, that doesn't add to the burden of our taxpayers on their property tax bills. And I really think we could leverage that dynamic.
Okay, next one for Dick. What do you see as the 3 biggest challenges facing our city? And if elected mayor, how would you address them?
Thank you. Good question, and ones that are often forgotten. 3 biggest challenges for me in the city is housing. Housing is the number one, not just for Lincoln City, but for the whole coast. And it's housing that meets the needs of all our citizens. So it's all income levels and rented for sale. The other is our infrastructure. quite frankly, we forget about water and sewer because it's underground. I don't know about you, but I enjoy a shower in the morning and expect the shower to run water when I turn it on. Same thing with the toilet. We forget about these things. And for me, that's a ongoing challenge. The water we'll talk specifically about is we're a growing community. What about our water for the future? Currently, our water comes from a stream that runs right by our intake valves. If we don't use it or capture it, we lose it. You can only capture so much at a time and use it. So I haven't heard any discussion from council or anybody else about future. And it takes a long time to either get more water rights or build retainage. So that infrastructure, same thing with sewer. You just heard last week a sewer break again in the Scooter Creek, and not long ago we had one on West Jetty, Northwest Jetty. Pipes break, you've got to maintain it. We forecasted $20 million worth of repairs, maintenance, in the near future just for sewer. So it's not something you can forget about. And then, like I said, housing, the other is transportation. Just being wide awake about our sidewalks, crosswalks, how are we going to receive our clientele, the tourists? Thank you.
Susan, you're up. As a city, where are we spending too much money and where are we not spending enough money?
Well, I can see a lot of places where we are spending not enough. I think that priorities need to be our police department. Our police department serves and responds to a whole lot more than our 8,000 population. It's not, it doesn't make sense to compare our police department with other cities of 8,000 population. They have to respond to a population of 25,000 during the summer, and a lot of weekends during the winter now too. We need to make sure that they're fully funded and have the equipment that they need. We have a lot of transit room tax dollars. Those are mandated where we can spend them. There are certain percentages of transit room tax dollars that go to different areas, and we can't change that without a change to our charter, which is a vote of the people. And maybe that's what needs to be done. We need to spend more money on, and we have budgeted this year a lot of money to upgrade our streets, get them in better condition. I think we could budget more. And obviously we need to devote money to our sewer system and make sure that those pipes aren't going to break. I guess all of our infrastructure could use more money.
Thank you. David, how would you as mayor ensure that when the city embarks on projects such as the visioning and design standards, first, that the information has immediate impact on the community, and second, that the money spent on the project is kept local?
That's a loaded question. So let's talk about how you feel as, let's take the logo. We have a new logo of an octopus. and we had seagulls for 40 years, 50 years, and I know they had some meetings about the new logo, but I talked to many people in neighborhoods and they missed the seagulls. And in connecting with people about decisions that we make as a city, we need to modernize our ability as a city to come to you on your time in a way that you can engage and I can hear from you about what you would like for us to do. If I set up a beautiful poster and have you come down to City Hall and weigh in, that doesn't work in a 2018 lifestyle where we're many times working multiple jobs, and that just doesn't work. And it's really important to me in the decisions that we do going forward that each and every one of you in this room feel like your voice has been heard. Because a logo has to be a brand that we all carry. And it's a dangerous sword that if you don't buy into it, people are nostalgic in this community. And I really want you to feel listened to, and as mayor, I'm going to use new innovative ways that cities around our state are using to reach you on time. And from your cell phone, you can weigh in on topics that are important to our community. And the other thing that I really also want to weigh in on is an ordinance was introduced yesterday with 0 citizen input. And I don't know if you guys watch City Council, but please go to YouTube and watch the beginning of the meeting. But to me, I do not ever, as mayor, want to engage an ordinance that all of you are not invited into a room and that I don't hear your feedback about choices we make as city leadership. I respect you too much. That's what I want to say.
If you were elected mayor, how can you bring more living wage jobs to town? And the second half of that question, what steps would you take to help solve the housing crisis so we can actually keep those employees in town?
Sounds like I'm doubling up. So I love the living wage job question, and my answer is the same as I just mentioned before. We've got to get our basics in order. And again, I would ask you to put your own mind in the place of a family who owns a business or a CEO and looking at relocating. What kind of exercise you go through before you relocate. And I can tell you the points I hit are, can I get housing? What are my schools like? Where will I be moving the kids to? What kind of medical facilities? A little bit of labor force, but and then transportation. So reinforcing that we've got to get our stuff, our basics in order to see that happen. The second half of the question was housing, my favorite.
They need somewhere to live.
And actually, I've got to compliment council, 5-6 years ago by buying the villages. Took a bold step, buying that piece of property, 350 some acres. The problem I have with it is 6 years later, we haven't done enough with it. There's been steps, a lot of things, again, we don't see. Master plan has been redone. We put a lot of infrastructure in. We've changed ordinances to allow less land, less parking requirements. If you look at the power plant in the North End, look at the construction boom going there now. It's because the city put the infrastructure in pump stations. So that North End is ready to go. We've also put out 8 properties recently to ask developers what would they do on those sites. 4 of them are housing. Great projects are coming to fruition. You'll see them shortly.
Okay, this is my last question for Susan. So if anybody wants a follow-up to any of these questions, I'll open it up to the audience when Susan's done, and feel free to ask any person up here any question. So Susan, with homelessness, drug use, and mental illness being issues in Lincoln City, if elected mayor, how would you address these issues, and how do you feel these issues have impacted Lincoln City?
Okay. they've impacted us greatly and more all the time. I'm a board member of Business for Excellence in Youth, and one of our programs is the backpack program. So I'm very aware of how many children need extra food, and a lot of them are homeless. I'm a supporter of continuing education, and later this week I will be attending the League of Oregon Cities Conference. We have a full day of seminars on housing, and I hope to come back with some good ideas to share. I also will be attending a half day of seminars on homeless, and Eugene has some very unique solutions to that problem, and I hope to come back with some ideas that might work here. Can I have a repeated question?
Oh, sorry.
I think that the steps the hospital is taking towards more mental health personnel could help our community.
Drug use and wellness.
Thank you. I think we need to work closely with our nonprofits, and there's a lot of them in our area who are doing really good things. And we have provided quite a bit of money the last couple of years to our nonprofits, and I think we need to re-examine that procedure and the way those monies are distributed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good job, everyone. So now we're going to open it up to the audience. Who has a question? Yes.
My question would be for Dick Anderson. I lived here for 10 years, vacationed here 5 years before I moved here. And the thing that I always have heard is that everyone is concerned about the housing, but I've never heard a solution. So you guys are all concerned, but I don't know what your solution would be. Nobody has a solution for this.
Well, so the question, let me try to phrase it, is really, what are you doing about housing? We've heard a lot of talk all the time, and not just Lincoln City, but up and down the coast.
Right.
And I think, it's a good question, because, people could talk and do talk all the time about all these things. We need to see action. And one of the things that I did for that was try to identify what is the role of the city. I think when you ask that question, you got to look at who you're talking to, because if you're talking to me as a developer, my answer is different than as former mayor, current city councilor. So I'm going to answer it as a current city councilor. We need to facilitate. The city needs to facilitate the solution. And our need is housing. So as I said before, buying land is a big facilitator, because with land, you can then give it away if you are extreme. The cost of the land is a big piece of any kind of housing project. So we could be given away. As I've indicated, I made a long list of things the city has done because they don't get identified. System development charges dropping 30 and 40% is a huge positive impact to encouraging developers. Multifamily, where you don't have to have as many parking spaces per unit, is a huge impact for developers. So, and I can go on, because I started keeping track of all the things we have done, the city has done, positioning for the developers. We've gone out and invited developers in. It's wide open. There's a need. They agree. We've got all the tools. They're very complimentary. The answer, though, is we're busy in Portland. We have enough business in Portland to where I don't have to relocate my workforce to build these things. So to answer the question, we haven't found the final incentive, but I think these 8 projects that I just talked about, 8, 4 commercial, 4 residential, are going out and asking the developer, showcasing the land, asking the developer what we can build there. We had 22 responses on those 8 properties. Every one of them had 2 plus. And so we've gone through, and I think we'd be really pleased. I think we finally found a key. We quit telling people what we wanted, other than we want housing. You tell us what you can build. And so shortly, I think we'll enjoy some real benefits from it.
Susan has already addressed the question regarding homelessness. I would like to pose that same question to David and Dick.
Okay, which question was that?
It was the one on homelessness that Susan just answered.
Okay, so how would they address the homeless problem?
Respond to that particular question.
Okay, David,
Okay.
another question again?
No, this is really raw for me. So we have 2 issues with our homeless situation. We are weeks away from 40-degree weather, deadly weather. We lost someone 2 years ago in Cutler who died because of elements. And you're telling me we're going to start now on a forum about homelessness? Whose grandmother, whose uncle, aunt is going to be out there in 2 weeks? This is a disrespecting situation. It's very hard for me to handle. We've had a homeless shelter for 6 months, back and forth over an ordinance that last year it was used and there was no threats of opening our doors. And they were told a week ago, we're not going to give you the variance and throw these people out. And our solutions is to bus them all the way to Faith Baptist. That is not how this community was raised. I rode my bike on the street. It's not how we are here. And we need to get together now for a solution for this winter. I don't care where it is. But if we're going to get threats from the city that they're going to fine us for protecting people, I say bring it. I don't want you all behind me. And we can't keep that homeless shelter intact. Those families did not sign up to have that dynamic in that neighborhood. And we're going to find a solution by next winter that is going to work for this community. It's too important. And we can find a solution. There's much bigger problems we've solved in this community. And I know there's a task force that was mentioned in council. Get involved. Come around the table. But we do not have till next year to solve this problem. And I would ask you to email the city and say, let the warming shelter be where it's going to be through the winter. They have worked for months to make that infrastructure work. I interviewed a neighbor across the street. They said they are excellent neighbors. So allow us to keep it there through this winter, and we will solve this next summer. Thank you.
Clearly, homelessness is a emotional situation for all of us. We all have a different view and a variety of views of the word homelessness. You know, I think David spoke of transients without saying the words. Let me speak as Susan did or alluded to, hungry kids. How about families that are living in cars with children? Family Promise, for example, deals with homelessness. And for me, if you think, who's the most fragile, I would say people who are families working, but unfortunately they're one episode away from being homeless. The car breaks down, medical emergency, one of the kids gets sick. I got to stay home rather than go to work. So what I'm trying to point out is there are all different types of homelessness. Now, I'm also, unfortunately, don't believe this room is going to solve it. I don't think I'm going to solve it. I do believe we can make a lot of headway. And I'm sorry to hear that we aren't making it fast enough for everyone. But we've made great strides for some, and I think we need to applaud. The council, as I've reminded you, has spent your tax dollars. For the last 2 years, they've moved money that used to be $50,000 up to $150,000. And I think last night you heard, if you watched, the county, our large county, population of 46,000, has 175,000 devoted. So here's the city of Lincoln City that devotes 150,000, and the county does 175. So just perspective, you know, I'd say Lincoln City is doing well. We've given money to the warming shelter, Family Promise, and to Shiloh as a way to, you know, support them financially. And you tell us what, get going. I mean, so it's not that the city isn't involved and doesn't want to be. You know, we need to find at what level, where, and you know, I hear the emotion. It's an issue that we all need to tackle, and timing is never right.
I've been waiting for this question.
You haven't been involved in all this like a lot of us have for the last 3 years, and it's not the city's function only to take care of this. It is a state and county function. City functions are to provide basic services to the city, which is water, sewer, police, protection, fire, protective. Homelessness is a social issue, not a government.
Can you grab your phone, ma'am?
Excuse me?
I'd like you to grab your cell phone.
Why?
Because you're going to go on to Facebook, you're going to look at a video of me in 2016 at the homeless shelter, where we were 1 degree away from 40 degrees.
But you didn't answer my question. When did you become a resident of Lincoln City?
I met the requirement that the city necessary. I've been here almost a year. But if you go into my Facebook page on Lincoln City TV, I was advocating for that warming shelter 2 years ago. I informed people. I had people text me, "Thank you very much." I did an interview with the North Warming Shelter behind IGA, and I also did one at Taft Hall. So we have a precedent of using that facility. Why we can't allow that to go through the winter? I have residents next door say they're good partners. And yeah, I wish I was a resident here earlier, but life ebbs and flows. My daughters graduated from college, they got married, I knew I always wanted to come back. But I really planned to run for mayor 5 years ago. I have built over 36 internet TV markets all throughout Portland and Salem that I meant to build over 5 years to do one thing, run for mayor of Lincoln City and promote my town to the largest major markets. And I did that because I love this city. And for 3 years, I have been promoting the positive stories. One of the things that impassioned me is we had a Taft High School student take her life. My sister, who graduated from Taft, is a suicide counselor. I came to start positive stories about Lincoln City in 2015. Go to Facebook, ma'am. You will see I've been on these beaches way more than the year. I've donated media to almost every nonprofit in this room, and you know that. So I appreciate you saying that. I want to address your next question about the government shouldn't pay for the homeless. Can you clarify? I really want to get it correct. So please, I want to get it right, please.
The city's job is to provide basic services to their citizens, which is water, sewer, police protection, fire protection, those kinds of things. Where homelessness is it's a social issue. It's not a city function of government. How do you get? I mean, the city of Lincoln City isn't responsible for paying for this. It's a social and it's a community, and you're making it a government issue when it really isn't a government issue.
Okay, so I want to repeat your question so you feel completely understood, because I really, really care about you feeling understood. So you're saying that homelessness is a social issue and taking care of them isn't necessarily the need of our tax dollars.
It's not the basic needs that are dictated by the water, sewer, police protection, and fire protection.
So is feeding little kids not in the charter either? Giving them backpacks on Friday when they don't have money on Friday? They don't have food to eat over the weekend?
Basic service of a municipality.
So are you agreeing that giving kids backpacks of food to eat over the weekend also isn't in the charter?
No, it's done by a 501(c)(3), a nonprofit organization.
We just gave money to them as a city.
As a grant.
As a grant, but you can label it how you want, but you just said we shouldn't do it, and we have a dozen nonprofits who do it.
That's not what I said. I said it's not a basic function of the city.
So let me tell you, I interviewed Norma, the owner of Shuckers, yesterday, and she goes, you know what? I want to let you know what it's like to run a business down here when we do not address the needs of these people who are moving through. And what they normally do is they get in groups of 5 and they go find empty homes because it's 40 degrees outside, and they're like, I'm going to go kick in the door of an empty home, or die. And so that is a systemic problem. If we don't give a place for them to go, we're going to add our police chief that has to go in the middle of the night and potentially address something that is not necessary, if we could pre-manage it, to have to go to a call because these transits are in an unoccupied house. It affects his budget. If we look at the unpaid emergency trips at Samaritan, that is very expensive compared to what we spend on housing. Ask Tim Melton. And we had a gentleman who OD'd at Samaritan. They revived him. He went out in the car and took his life and was successful. And all that expense. So we can look the other way that our city charter that was written in the 1950s, we may need to modernize it. And I agree with what you're saying. And so what I want to end your comment with is I invite you to get in a room with me with all of our constituents who feel this needs to be addressed. And do we need to add it to the charter? I agree. Maybe we need to update it. And I'd love to have you around the table, and I care about how you feel.
Any more questions? Anybody else have a question? Yes.
The last moderator question that was asked had 3 parts to it. All 3 candidates have been asked to answer the question, and all they've addressed is the homelessness. Mental illness and drug abuse have not been touched on at all out of that question. And all 3 candidates please touch on that.
Okay. You want to elaborate more?
What I said was that I support what the hospital is doing. They are increasing their mental health people. I think we need more drug addiction and mental health opportunities in our area. Having the professionals in Newport does not help the people who need the help here. But I think the hospital is doing some for that. If we had other agencies that would come to us for funding, then maybe they could be part of our grants that we give once a year to social agencies.
Mental health and addiction, again, I'm going to put on my health district hat because that's where it belongs. I think as the question earlier, I quite frankly don't see it as a municipal issue. That's not where the funding would come from. Occasional grants, support, yes. It's a huge issue. And quite frankly, your North Lincoln Health District has it on its agenda. We're the ones that take your tax dollars, because if you're in North County, you pay into the hospital, this health district, which supports the hospital. As you probably know, we're building a new hospital, a $42 million new hospital, on the heels of the Early Learning Center that's also for daycare, childcare in this community, affordable and professional. So those came with partnerships with the city, and even the hospital's got the city touch in there. So, once the hospital is completed, the health district has on its agenda addiction and mental health, because you're exactly right, it's a huge issue in North County, and the services aren't here, don't come here. So that's our next move. But I'm sorry, I don't see it as a or a city budget item. We could certainly support, assist in the forms of grants, but it's not a budget item.
I'm going to have to disagree. We had a coastal caucus at Chinook Winds last month, and I just want you guys just to Google Oregon Economic Coastal Caucus. We had Peter Courtney, Tina Kotek. These are the president of the two houses of the legislature in Lincoln City for 2 days of meetings, and hosted by our confederated tribes of the Siletz tribes. This is a cool event where it's like a TEDx conference where our legislators are sitting on couches in a forum like this, and we can ask some questions about public policy. And it was decided from that caucus, we're going to distribute state funds for mental issues. Our poor officers are on the front line of defense, and how much mental illness training are they dealt with? How many people in our prisons are really having a mental episode and their chemistry's not right? So we as a community need to look, because I have dealt with the mental illnesses myself. I had a person here in Lincoln City who threatened people, and I had to take him to Portland to check him into a proper mental health facility. People said, go up by DMV because we have an office for mental health up there. I walked in there, and here's a guy who was suicidal, and they said, bring him back in 6 weeks. That is not the answer I needed for that situation. And I'm sure there's others who are walking in that same office with people with mental episodes. Just last week, I'm driving by Highway 101 and West Devils Lake Road, and a man is pulling a woman out of the back of the car by her feet, and she's kicking. And I pull over, and she's suicidal, and I put the phone to Guinevere Crispin. She runs our mortuary in town, and she's a trained suicide prevention officer, and she tells me the officers in Lincoln City frequently have people in crisis. The officer hands her the phone to talk them off the ledge. And to me, that doesn't seem like a ready community that we're meeting the needs of the mentally challenged in our company or in our community. When I interviewed our family promise counselor, she has kids who are dealing with bipolar and mental illness. And that's a very poignant thing, that some of us are born with chemistry and we just can't talk them out of it. And we need to apply, just as our statewide decisions are, to look at ways we can get around the table and work in concert with our state relationships, because they're coming towards us with resources, but we need to be a mentally prepared community and get ready, because that's not a fun situation. I'd say ask our officers what they roll up onto when people are in crisis. Thank you.
Feel free, but I don't want to cut off any of the questions, but we're going to take one more. Yes.
I have a question, ma'am. I got 2 kids in town, 2 young kids. There's a lot of talk about needing more high-density housing, more housing, low-cost housing. But I know our elementary schools are all over 30 kids in classroom. You mentioned earlier in the introduction something about the difficulty keeping teachers here. Like, that's crazy, that many kids in one room, and when we're adding new apartment complexes every year, 50 new kids a year into the city, into our schools, and no RC function. Sorry, worked out. But it doesn't seem like we're helping our kids by shoving them into those classrooms and doing more and more and more every year of that. So how are we going to get the county to do their part of giving us more schools, not 10 years from now, and now we need them? Teach them.
Okay, who was your, did you have a specific person? Anybody? Okay. Okay, you want to take that?
Let me help you, because you're right. Great question. Nothing wrong with that. Let me, if you don't mind, steer you. You're talking to 3 candidates that are running for city. Schools are a whole separate entity, jurisdiction. We don't deal with other than support, on our kids, and we're concerned about schools, because you heard me say we need to do and make sure our schools are to the level to accept. So it's not even the county, it's a separate school district. It's taxed and the state. So, but the answer, let me give you a little highlights. The schools recognize that the growing population, primarily from the north too, they have bought land north of town, is still in the county, so they've already planned for another school to help alleviate that. They're in the process of moving their buses that are down in Taft up there in the next year and build a school, and it'll be in conjunction with that land that the city bought that'll be developed into housing. So it'll be another pearl, so to speak. But if I could switch, because I share your concern, and I think your question and demands, one, go to our state representatives and senators who vote for funding on schools. And funding that actually reaches the classroom is the answer, not just funding of schools, because somehow it doesn't trickle down to the classroom. So as a mayor, what my answer would be, you see me at school board meetings advocating for our kids, because I want that element in my community to be strong and visible so we're more attractive. But from there, like you, I'm a vote and financial supporter, and I'm an advocate. So I know it's not answering your question, but it's not our question to answer as a municipal mayor, since we're all going for that position. But I wanted to direct you in the right place for the question, and that's your state representative and senator.
Dr. Gray is our new superintendent. She presented to the Rotary here a couple weeks back, and 30% of those kids in those classes, 10 of those 30, are not going to end up in that classroom by the end of the year. We have a dynamic in our schools here on the coast that is not like most families that just have the home in the cul-de-sac and the picket fence. And I want to end childhood homelessness by 2022, by the time that my term would end. This is not even talked about, and it is an important issue that we work with the school district to help these families where mom comes and goes to another state and the kids build relationships in band, and they build relationships. My high school friend in high school in Portland stayed because his parents moved away and finished the school year with me. So Dr. Gray said you have to be intentional with that, and we're so lucky to have an educational leader who has that on her radar and is ready to step into this dynamic of a coastal community. And I would encourage you to go and volunteer at the schools, because like you say, that teacher, I always say our teachers of today have a little asterisk compared to the issues they're facing today in 2018 than the issues we faced when we were in school. They have to work more hours on less. And so Dick is correct. This is a school budget issue, but we make up our schools. We are the volunteers. So it is up to us to shoulder our side of our educational experience. I was volunteered when I was a little guy in these schools. And so, yes, it's not a budgetary issue for us, but all of us need to be an active partner and engage our students. And not only our little guys, but our graduates, because they're coming out, and we need to make sure that we have a place for them in our companies so that they can, some don't go to college, we need to keep them local. And then I'm just going to close. I wanted to say thank you to Brooke for hosting us. Can we give Brooke a round and all of our staff here at Sidedoor Cafe? Please come back here, bring your families back here. Everyone, if you can bring your family back in the next month, you'll have an amazing meal, and it's winter. It's like Game of Thrones, winter is coming. And please support local for our families who are needing their hours to make it through this winter. Thank you.
Finish that up, Susan?
I graduated from the U of O with a degree in elementary ed. I've worked in elementary schools. I've run daycare centers. I'm very aware of what a good classroom conditions should be. As mayor or on city council, we have no control over that, but it is something that we need to be aware of. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. Let's give our candidates one last hand. And once again, mark your calendars for October 21st, Sunday at 2 p.m. at Chinook Winds. We will have another candidates forum that is county-wide. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your input. And go have a great day.